Scott Morrison has just announced a scheme that's going to allow first home buyers using up to $50,000 of their superannuation, potentially up to 40%, towards their first home deposit. So is this going to be a great policy? Is this going to be the end of property boom as we know it? Is it actually potentially opening up the market for more people? Let's go through in this video. Today Scott Morrison and the Liberal government said if they're re-elected, they're going to allow home buyers to use up to $50,000 or a responsible portion towards their home deposit. So it's actually pretty interesting, like potentially up to 40%. The idea is to try and help people into the market, but like, is it going to cause a big issue like we saw in COVID? Nathan, walk us through what this scheme is.
Exactly right, Jaden. So you can use up to 50 grand of your super or 40% of the balance, whichever is lesser. So no greater than 50 grand. So in the event that you didn't have quite enough funds in the superannuation to get the 50 grand out, you can't exceed 40% of the balance. Now, the main thing here is what they're talking about is that it should cut up to 3 years off the time it takes to save a deposit. Now, we talked about it in a previous video. For first homeowners out there, it's taking about 11 years to save that deposit based on data that's out there. So being able to release that funds out to use towards purchasing a property and cutting 3 years in the time that it takes to save is a big deal for a lot of first homeowners out there. And the good thing is that they're talking about this as striking the balance right between utilizing the money that's currently locked away to transform your family's life, as well as being responsible in that when you sell the property, the money that you've taken from your super will be returned plus any capital gains. So effectively your super total balance should go back to kind of what it was in essence, and you're not going to be in a position where you've used your money and then you can't use that later down the track. Under the coalition's housing policy, they're also extending it to try and target 1.3 empty nesters and pensioners to give them incentives to downsize, because we know that's been a big problem, that supply piece. There's been high demand, not enough supply. So the coalition's also talking about targeting those empty nesters with incentives. If they sell their property and they're over 55 years old, they'll get up to $300,000 per person where they can put that money in their super without being taxed heavier or anything like that. So I think the government's looking at it from two sides, one to help first homeowners, as well as trying to engage and get more supply in the marketplace. So I think this policy looks like a good one. It'll be interesting to see how it works with first homeowners. I know when COVID first happened, Jaden, we saw there was 10 grand in superannuation that was able to be withdrawn back then. What did we see back then?
Yeah, so it was definitely one of those things where like you withdraw up to $20,000 from your super under COVID relief, like if your income had gone backwards or if you're concerned about your income, and there was temporary access to your super. And we did see a lot of first home buyers actually use this and utilize it to try and get in the market, which I guess in retrospect worked out pretty all right for them because obviously the market's gone that way. But the risk is, potentially you're taking out your superannuation, your retirement savings, you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul in a sense. Because it's money that you're potentially going to fall for compounding interest. Nathan, like, how did you see the banks actually take this? Were they fine with the super, like using that as the deposit? Were there any issues with that at the time?
Now, back then, that was really based for people that were affected by COVID. That 10 grand wasn't actually supposed to be used towards housing deposits or anything like that. You're able to release 10 grand if you're COVID affected. So the banks didn't really like it. So this scheme here that they're talking about, where you can use those funds towards a deposit, will probably be looked at a lot differently from the super release that we saw during COVID. And the good thing I like about what this scheme is talking about is any funds that you are taking will actually be returned. So unlike the first scheme, which was if you were COVID affected, you could access 10 grand, so it wasn't used for housing. This one's specifically targeted at houses and specifically designed for first homeowners. So I think the two things are a little bit different. The bank should certainly have no problems with it. The fact that it cuts down your deposit time in 3 years is awesome as well. And also the fact that the funds will be returned to your superannuation means that, even if you buy a property now, sell it in the future, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, the funds might be back there anyway.
And we're seeing this in New Zealand anyway. There's a similar scheme where you can access your KiwiSaver, which is the same as like our superannuation here. And so in New Zealand, it's not like it's not a completely revolutionary concept of using your super to buy a home. In New Zealand, you can actually do this in a similar way. Like I guess, like it says here, the upside is you get your own home, which is exciting. The downside is you're going to reduce your balance for super, like in retirement. It's going to be less money. You have to work harder. So, you know, it's not revolutionary, but definitely, I guess, it's going to help more first home buyers get in the market, because it's kind of getting harder. Like with prices we covered before, getting up and up, it's more difficult. Nathan, how do you think the banks would manage this, or like treat this if you're taking money from your super? Like, is it going to be considered normal deposit? What does it mean, I guess, when you're looking at buying a home?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they see this from a genuine savings point of view, because you'll have held those funds in for a long period of time. I guess this is a brand new thing. It was only announced 6 hours ago, so there's probably a lot more dust to settle and to come. As we know, the coalition also has some other schemes that they're talking about improving in. We talked about the first home loan deposit scheme previously. They're going to change that up, increase the price caps, allow more first home buyers to get in this scheme. So they're increasing the spots from 10,000 to 30,000, increasing the caps by $100,000. They're also looking regional at fixing that up. So there's a bunch of things going on at the moment, which I think is a real plus for our first homeowners out there. Guys, if you need assistance here at Hunter Galloway, we get home loans approved. So if you're looking for a mortgage broker, we're based in Brisbane, deal with people Australia-wide, we can help. Call us at 1300 088 065, and we'll see you next time.